Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time on a beautiful Friday. Lisa is here in Denver to join us for our summer CIPG, very informal get together and just kind of chat about what's going on. I'm Paul Worthman, and I'm the Associate Director of the Experiential Learning Center at CU Denver. Yeah, why don't we just go around and do just kind of quick introductions and we can do updates. I'll ping it over to Sam.
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Boren. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at CSU Fort Collins in our main career center there as the Associate Director of Experiential Learning. And normally I would have my colleague Marie Terrell with me, but she's out on vacation. So I'm repping for the both of us. She's our internship coordinator. So excited to be here.
Welcome, Justin. You want to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Justin Cool. I'm Assistant Director of Career Services over at Daniels College of Business. My colleague Angie and then possibly Jess will be joining shortly, but I've been in career services just for a few months. I started in November, so I'm still relatively new to the world, but still getting a hang of it and everything. So it's nice to meet all of you.
Welcome. You're still untainted. That's awesome. Cassie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm Cassie Mullen, she, her pronouns, and I work for MSU Denver in the College to Career Readiness hub on the faculty engagement team. I'm the experiential learning program manager. Usually my supervisor, Alyssa Marks, would be joining as well, but she's out of town right now, so kind of holding the fort there. Yeah, happy to see you all.
Let's see, Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Spice. I'm the director of the UCCS Career Center, and we have a real small team, about 3.5 people there, and so we all share all duties, and internship is one of those that I am going to take over. So,
Because you don't have enough to do, right?
yeah, no, it's good. It's all good, but nice to meet everybody.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. See, Nina.
Nana, like neighbor. Hi, everybody. I'm the career and internship counselor over at Arapahoe Community College, ACC. We were understaffed for a while and just going, like, I was filling every role possible, doing some, we do academic advising as well for undeclared. Academic advising is kind of separate, but with us, it's kind of pretty interwoven at ACC. So I was covering for another career counselor who has happily moved on to Red Rocks, and Evan is loving it there. We just rehired a career counselor. I cover mostly STEM, and Evan covers mostly, the other career counselor who is Brady, who's wonderful, just started, and he might be joining just to kind of get an idea. He comes from academic advising, but just to kind of get a sense of kind of what all of this is and kind of what we do. Yeah, we're doing pretty okay. We're hopefully going to have another position. We did have somebody else in this group before, who's Keisha, and Keisha has moved on to workforce and community programs, which at ACC runs kind of like the apprenticeships. So that's kind of, we work together, but yet that's a kind of separate part. We don't have, it's a different structure. But hopefully we will have a new position in the upcoming fiscal year that will be, we had a position before that was half-time with the Career Center and half-time with workforce and community programs. And that was essential, I think, in many ways to kind of really bridge that gap and not make us so siloed. So, and we work 2 days a week remote still. I don't see that going away anytime soon. It's kind of how ACC does it. Yeah, otherwise doing well. Sorry, I'm a little late. My internet was cranky after all the trees came down in the neighborhood. So yeah, just a little crazy. Everybody's safe and everybody's fine, but a little crazy here.
That south side of town really got blasted yesterday. Glad you guys are okay. Jamie. I don't think she's muted. Well, maybe she stepped away. Well, Nana, thank you for the updates at ACC. Who else wants to provide some updates when we go around again? Sam, you want to give us some updates? What's going on up at CSU?
Sure, yeah, happy to. Let's see, we don't have any big positions that we're hiring for. We're kind of wrapping up that cycle where we're at right now. The big thing on the horizon for us is with Marie starting, who's our internship coordinator, for those of you that joined a little bit later. One of her big initiatives was to get our campus, which is large, talking to each other about what's happening regarding internships. And so lots of progress has been made in that space in helping at least get people connected to Marie, who's kind of working through these one-sheeter guides, essentially, that help students understand, like, is this required for my major? Can I get paid for it? Am I placed, or do I have to search this out on my own? What are cooperating agencies looking like, or who's been used in the past? And so that's been really helpful. And then right at the end of the semester, we collected information from all of our internship contacts regarding some more in-depth questions, like, what do you do when you have an undocumented student who is going through your program and needs to do this for graduation? Like, what are the steps that you take? And so we have a lot more of that data to kind of process through now, and then start strategizing for the fall semester of what we're going to do with that. But part of it was collecting, like, who is interested, and how do we start bringing together that group of people that have been traditionally pretty siloed, even within, a college, like the College of Natural Sciences. They just don't talk across departments, to better understand how things are going. So that's one big update. And then the other is, and it kind of ties to my question that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on, but we received some grant funding to do close opportunity gaps, essentially, by using student employment and internships. And so we're going to be working with our on-campus supervisors to help them craft internships for next summer. And they'll be almost like senior seminar, where you work on a team or a project through a team, essentially. And so we're doing a lot of planning right now of how do we talk to our on-campus supervisors about transitioning what it could just be, normal student employment into an internship-like experience, or an internship opportunity for a group of students. And so we're really excited about that prospect, and eager to hear other people's thoughts or trials in that space as we talk to those supervisors about that. So that's really the big things happening at CSU.
Nice, thank you. You got some cool stuff going on. Yeah, look forward to that conversation about internships on campus. Justin, give us some updates. What's new? What's happening?
I'm actually probably gonna pass it off to Angie here.
Okay.
She just joined, and the reason mostly is because to give you guys some context, I just actually completed my first quarter of teaching our Daniels professional development program. And so what I can provide is that we're doing a lot of work internally right now to try to update our process, essentially, of providing internships, informing students of those internships, maybe increasing resources. Specifically, what I've been doing is working a lot with some of our students who are interested in the sports and entertainment world, and trying to line up some more relationships and partnerships with companies that provide internships that are seasonal. Because a lot of those organizations have seasonal jobs that students can do just for a season as an intern to gain experience, for example, in marketing down the road, and really be able to launch that into their career down the road. So that's really what I've been doing, but I'd love to pass it on to Angie to talk a little bit more about what we've been doing broadly on the internship side of things.
Isn't Justin awesome? We're so glad he's part of our team. Yeah, Justin joined us back in November during the week of Thanksgiving, which we all decided was kind of the weirdest time to start a new job. But we're so glad he's here, and I really appreciate everything that he just shared. Sorry to join a little bit late. My 8 a.m. meeting ran over, so Do you want me to introduce myself, Paul, and sort of what was the question? I just want to make sure I'm addressing
Yeah,
everyone.
we just did introductions and then now we're doing updates. So
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so my name is Angie Jimenez. I work with Justin, and we actually have another full-time career coach on our team, Jess Singleton. So you may see her around town at some of these types of events. I'm the associate director of the undergraduate career team at Daniels at DU, and we are very busy, which is good. In terms of internship updates, as Justin mentioned, having background as a student athlete, he has a special place in his heart for how to connect students, both our athletes as well as students wanting to work in sports industry. And so sourcing some really great opportunities. I'm curious if any of you have something similar that you've had interactions with and would be willing to share with us as well, because it can be a particularly difficult industry to break into, but one that can serve a wide population of students within our business college in terms of majors and emphasis and areas of interest. We had a meeting yesterday actually with our career team, both grad and undergrad, in terms of our internship or our career website. We use the 1220 platform for our Pioneer Careers online website that sources all of the opportunities for our students, and just really trying to figure out that sweet spot between having those sort of the wide open handshake gates and sort of every opportunity possible coming in, or creating more of a curated experience for our students with quality opportunities to work with companies here, mostly in the Denver area, and then additionally outside as they seem fit for our students. So just some really interesting conversations around how to maximize some of the tools that we already have and leverage those in the best way possible for our student experience, and certainly the interactions we have with employers here in the Denver area as well. So yeah, just good things are happening. I love this time of year. It's a great opportunity to really dig deep and reevaluate and look ahead to next year. So
thank you. You have lots going on. It sounds like good stuff. Cassie, what are the updates from MSU?
Yeah, so from the last meeting, a lot of our team is new. So we are part of the faculty engagement experiential learning team. So myself and Alyssa joined in late fall. And so a lot of it has just kind of been regrouping, establishing norms, direction of where we want to head with things. We were supposed to get some of these experiential learning liaison positions that were going to live within the colleges to help support us. We're unsure of what that's looking like right now. So kind of to adjust for some other plans that have been made, we are introducing a new experiential learning program manager role similar to mine. My focus is in internships. This new role will focus in service learning. So that way there's just not one person kind of focusing across the board on experiential learning, pinpointing a little bit of different focus areas there. We're also looking at, I guess, one of the biggest programs right now that we're looking at starting is a partnership with Dream US and Parker Dewey. So our immigrant service offices are helping us with a new fellowship program. We're going to have different programs across campus submit short-term fellowship opportunities that our Dream US scholars will be able to apply for and actually get funding to do some of these skill development based experiential learning opportunities. So we're super excited about that, offering some flexibility in their, if they can't fully do an internship program because of the time commitment, this will allow them to still build some skill sets in their focus areas, while earning a little bit of money while doing so. And the other big piece is kind of similar to what Sam was saying before, a big regrouping project of finding out across campus, what do internships look like? How do we get students dialed in, and what kind of supports do they need from our offices that directly impact their programming? Because some of our departments, I'm sure similar to you all, very autonomous with their internship programs, and some really rely on our support. So how do we make sure that we're supporting those that need us and offering, just that smaller slice of support for those that already have some of those built-in pieces?
Nice, thank you. Jenny, what's going on down in the Springs?
Well, I just came on board in January as the director. They were without a director for about 8 months before that. So since January, I've been doing some restructuring and trying to kind of bring things in because it was being ran by 1.5 FTE. So there was one career coach and then a half of a career coach. So another career coach got hired in November, which was very weird, right? That's a weird time. And so when I started, she felt like she was just starting because of all the breaking and everything. So she's fantastic. She's got many years of experience at FSU as a career coach and assistant director there. So she's been great. And then the person who kind of was not the official interim for my position, she still ran the office and they did such a great job. But what needed to happen was some streamlining of some things. So we had a fellowship opportunity come up and that's one of the things that we're working on that I'm trying to get kind of in a tighter box. We have a couple of fellowships that we do, and people are just not they're using that differently in different ways, employers are. So we have one nonprofit that has one fellow and the application process is loose. I made an application and they had a fellow last year for the first time, and it's working on a grant that we have. We have a DEI grant that's following this, or supporting this. And so that fellowship, it's odd. It's supposed to be 10 hours a week, and it's almost treated like an internship. So I'm leery about that one. I feel like they're working the person for a very minimal amount of pay. It's like a $1,000 scholarship a semester. So that one is odd. And then we have the T. Rowe Price, who is the center is actually called the T. Rowe Price Career and Innovation Center. And the reason for that is they moved the center it was kind of COVID times, to the center of the university and wanted to make it centralized and did a great remodel. It's a beautiful office. If you guys haven't been down there, come down and see it. It's excellent. And so T. Rowe Price is very prevalent in our school. And so they support six fellows, and they do such an excellent job. I would like to use theirs as a model. They do 10 hours a semester. They pay them $2,000 each semester, and they only have a requirement of 10 hours a semester, working with a mentor that's assigned to them from T. Rowe Price. And they have certain criteria they have to do, like go to 2 career fairs, one first semester, one second semester. They just have some different criteria. It's more of what I think a fellowship should look like. So that's strange to me. We have we're doing so many different things, so many things out of this office. This team is crazy amazing. I was a school counselor for many years. So I was in public education, high school for 20 plus years. Before I got this position, I was department chair of the counseling office. I'm a licensed school counselor. And so coming into this and having the work ethic these guys have is like, I'm so lucky. I just can't. The things they put out are crazy. Right now, that's why I took over internships, because they just do everything. They're doing everything. So I'm trying to calm it down a bit. But we're working with university advancement on several different projects. There's a lot of DEI going on, a lot of DEI support based on what career services we provide. But one of them that's coming up, we're having a meeting next week, is the possibility of having internships coming out of our office. So this is a timely meeting because no internships, other than the couple of fellowships, really are coming out of our office. We have interns from the SAHI program that we supervise because we need more, we need more help. And so they come and help us with their 40 hours. It's not very long, but this is going to be supporting interns. And so very excited about working with university advancement and a nonprofit. The nonprofit company wants to work with all nonprofits and be able to pay the interns and work for different nonprofits within the city. So really excited about that opportunity. That's a big one amongst many, many other things we're doing that is one of the things I'm probably most excited about is getting some internships coming out of our office. So that's a very brief synopsis of the crazy changes that have been going on at UCCS. It's awesome. It's great to see.
It's a lot of changes. That's really exciting. See, Jamie? There you are. Is your audio working? I don't think your audio is working. Uh-oh. I don't think it is. We can't hear you. Darn. Let's go back to Nana. Nana, do you have any additional updates for the group?
I mean, I think a lot of what we're also trying to do is see, there are a few opportunities that we've had to work with. We recently were working a little bit with Sue Boulder because there are some internships that are specifically, they have to have community college students. And so we've been working a little bit with them, and that's been wonderful. And we also had the opportunity to work with Minds, and there is more funding. So it's kind of an update. There's more that's going on with some of the community college for NSF and some DoD funding where that is a component. And so that's a potential big area of growth for us, because it could, yeah, it just really, and it's nice because then I think our students are even better prepared when they're transferring. So we're kind of excited about that. Yeah.
Sounds really cool. How's your audio now, Jamie?
Can you guys hear me now?
We got
Yay,
you.
sorry about
Yay.
that. I wondered because I told everybody I'm leaving my camera off today because I have a weird internet connection, and largely because I'm selfishly sitting outside on my back patio enjoying what feels like the first day of summer. So apologies, you guys. I am the internship program manager at the Corbell School for our graduate students at DU. We have lots going on. So we are hiring for a position. Mira Morton Luna left us and went to an amazing opportunity at MSU. We're very excited for her. Sorry to lose her, but we are looking for an employer relations position. If you know of anybody, that would be great. And internships have been super busy. We are continuing to had a very successful model this year where we're working with both donors and organizations to support those unpaid positions. So donors are providing stipends in support of our unpaid internship positions with some of our nonprofits and NGO organizations. So that has continued to be an amazing relationship, and we're looking at kind of expanding that. We also are waiting to hear, we wrote a grant with AmeriCorps, and again, kind of a similar situation to really support expansion of AmeriCorps program and help provide funded positions for our students, particularly in the nonprofit sector, right, which is really a hard one for us to cover. And obviously a lot of our students, that's exactly where they're at with a lot of the nonprofit organizations. So we're waiting to hear about that. But other than that, it's just been really busy. 2 largest internship classes at Corbell these last 2 years. So getting everybody to graduation was exciting and a heavy lift, but yeah, but it's been a good year.
Nice. You guys have been doing some good stuff, and I'm glad we got your audio working.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
It's technology, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Quite a bit's been happening at CU Denver since we last met back the end of October. A lot of people changes. We started a new internship advisor right before the holidays, which is like totally ridiculous time to start anybody, but he started. His name's Doug. He's doing great. And, you know, summer is always our big internship enrollment time. And so he really took on a lot, coming from kind of new to this field to, shadowing me for a little bit to wrap things up for spring semester, and then just kind of handing it over to him and say, here you go. He did really well. On other teams, we're in Links Connect, so we're in there with a career center, study abroad, undergraduate research. But the career center team, their associate director left last fall. Nick Shackley left. So we're fortunate to get Mark Eisenberg. Sorry, DU, we took him from y'all. I know Mark's great, so we're excited to have.
He's so awesome. You're so lucky to have him.
We are thrilled, Angie. I'm super excited to be able to work with Mark and find new ways to collaborate. And then on the employer relations front, we have Rebecca Martinez, who was with us for a long, long time with the mines. And so Joan Fishburne, who was part of this group and was over in our School of Public Affairs for years, has taken on that role with us. So super excited to have Joan on our team. And I'm just excited to have two partners I think we can do some fun, creative, collaborative stuff with going forward. Other than that, we're still hiring Nathan Zakroff, who's been an awesome colleague for the last 3 years, is wrapping up his master's in counseling at CU Denver. So he's leaving us, believe it or not, for an internship. What's up with that? In New York. But Nathan is graciously sticking around part-time through the summer to help onboard the person who's replacing him. And we're super excited. She's going to start in July. Chloe DeShiro, who, Nana, thank you so much.
I love her. She will be a rock star. She just gets everything done and is just such a pleasant person to be around. So it's nice when we can kind of see the talent continue to grow. So yeah, she's really excited too.
We're super excited to have her join us. And Evan, who was with Nana and who went to Red Rocks, he was one of her references. He said he was going to steal her back from us. So we've got to talk to our IT team and figure out how to block his somehow from getting to her. I don't know how that works, but yeah, just a lot of people changes. Our team, with the exception of me, has turned over in the last year. Now our most senior person has been with us a year, Lauren Stewart. So we're fortunate they're all doing really well and jumping in. So excited about that. Lots of kind of reorganization stuff going around at CU Denver. The division we're in is now, again, called Student Affairs. We were Student and Community Engagement, and they're doing some reshuffling at the higher levels of things. I don't know how that's really going to affect us much down on the ground working with students. But the university's went through a round of budget cuts this year, and we're looking at another round for next year. So in addition to, let's move toward our big strategic 2030s strategic plan while we're cutting 4%. So, we'll figure that out. For years on campus, we did our internship and job fairs, one in the fall, one in the spring, in the Tivoli, right? Tivoli has this wonderful space called the Turn Hall, where we've done those forever. And after the fall internship and job fair last year, we started getting requests from employers for the spring fair. And even before we opened it up, before the end of the year, we had double the number of employers requesting to come to the fair than the Turn Hall could hold. And the Turn Hall we couldn't get like another reservation for the following day or the previous day. It just wasn't happening. So we were fortunate to work with our team over in our relatively new wellness center. I think that building's only been there a couple of years, and they've got some nice basketball courts, and our undergraduate research team has done their annual research and creative activities symposium. So a big celebration of undergraduate research on campus in that space for the last couple of years. And it's huge. So we talked to them and they graciously said, yeah, we'll let you come do your internship and job fair. So we were able to accommodate almost 85 employers And the only limiting factor was the amount of tables they had. If they'd had more tables, we'd had more employers. But it really turned out to be a nice space. Turn hall's great, but it's kind of dark and the acoustics aren't the best. So it's like this massive noise going on all the time. And our wellness center was a nice, open, airy, sunny kind of space with windows facing downtown. So that turned out to be a nice happenstance for us. So I think we're going to continue to do our fairs over in that space. And this, we're just coming here to get Chloe onboarded and really kind of get everybody up and going, but then really looking at kind of our processes and making them more streamlined and more transparent for everybody, finding ways to make our website more useful, put some more relevant information there. I don't think we've done a good job with that. So there's going to be a lot, I think, in the coming year, focusing on those kinds of things. And we also want to really take a look at trying to assess quality, right? Rather than just quantity, we want to make sure our students having a quality internship experience, our employers having a quality internship experience, our students having a quality internship course experience for those enrolled in academic credit. We've noticed a lot of difference across academic programs in terms of the nature of the internship course. Some are very loosey-goosey. The faculty require them to hardly do anything, and others are super rigorous. They're sitting in a classroom and they're doing stuff every single week. And the difference really is, are the faculty paid or not? Does this count toward their course load or not? Are they just doing this out of the goodness of their heart, or are they being rewarded for it somehow? So I want to find a way to work with our leadership to try to bring some more consistency to that and some more equity to that for our faculty. Sometimes I think they get left out, and want to try to advocate for them in that area. So those are some of the things going on at CU Denver. Yeah, it's so good to see everybody. Really miss y'all. It's been a crazy few months, and it sounds like it's been crazy few months for everybody on the call. So we got through it. Summer's here. Yay. We can take a little bit of a breath, and kind of get ready to focus on next year. So how's our time? 9:35. Should we just start moving into our topics and take a break at 10, or do y'all want to take a break now and come back in a few minutes and start?
I'm good with either. We can keep moving.
Well, why don't we can open up the first topic? I know Stacy from DU isn't here yet, so why don't we hold off on the AI conversation until she has a chance to get here. So let's talk about Sam's awesome, exciting on-campus internship prospects. Sam, you want to give us a little more background, or?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So like I said, it's coming from a grant fund, and we basically were given $350,000 to, again, close opportunity gaps and support first and second year retention through some means of employment, student employment, internships, whatever we deemed. And so my team of the experiential learning team is made up of a student employee development coordinator who promotes on-campus employment, and then an internship coordinator. And so we just kind of split the initiatives. We are in process of accepting applications right now for the student employment portion. So we're basically paying students who are coming onto campus to find an on-campus job. And they're going to go through a series of workshops with us, helping them do that in the first semester. And the second semester, they will go through a more meaning making experience. We recently did a student employee survey, and a lot of them are having a hard time translating their on-campus student employment experience to their future career, even though they're getting transferable skills. We know that the survey results just weren't where we had kind of hoped we thought they would be, and so this is going to help in that process. So that's the first leg of it. But the second one is focused specifically on internships, and so in the fall we'll open it up for on-campus employers to say, I want to create a project for a group of students to work on for my office for the summer of 2024. And so then in the spring, after selecting that cohort, we will walk them through, this is the plan, how to go about creating an internship project. So that's going to yield 4 to 5 students, 100 hours of work over the course of summer 2024. So a pretty big project, especially because they'll be working in groups for a department to do, a larger scale project over that time. And so, it's somewhat modeled after Marie Terrell, who, like I said, is my internship coordinator and isn't here today, came from the world of student athletes. And so it's somewhat modeled after our student athlete internship program in that they do on-campus internships over the summer, but theirs are not like team-based. They are single individual efforts for that office. And that's also on a much smaller scale. We're hoping to capture, 30 students at least with our internship efforts here. And then we would essentially take away the burden of pay from those on-campus employers, and we would pay the students $4,000 to complete that summer project over the course of it. So my biggest question or wondering is, how do you all talk to on-campus supervisors about positions that they have that are internships or creating an internship-like experience? I know Marie's done some work and research in this space, but just wanted to pick other people's brains of how do we help our supervisors shift from this is an hourly student employee who may or may not have interest in this field to I'm creating a group project that will hopefully be, like I said, large enough that it'll yield positive results for that department based on a team's effort around it. So yeah, pretty broad.
This is awesome. Can I ask a couple clarifying questions?
Please.
This is something I would really love to get standing up, on our side of the metro area as well, just knowing that there's opportunities within the campus and how can we sort of facilitate these pipelines and make those connections for the faculty or the students. So we've actually been discussing this quite a bit as of late, but would they be working on one project or each student has their own project? How many projects are involved in this process? That's my first question.
Yeah.
And then you said the student individually would be paid $4,000 for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious about where you're funding the internships and where that money's coming from, if you could share that.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to. So the first question, we're thinking we'll have about 6 to 10 departments who will come up with projects, and then there will be groups of 4 to 5 students working on said project. So it wouldn't necessarily be like they'll have their own individual one. That's what we're forecasting. And I think that's part of our cohort model with the employers, right? Or the on-campus employers is helping them build that project out. And that's the time we're going to spend with them in the spring, working through how to construct a project like that. So for now, I think they will be groups of students working on one project as opposed to individual projects, but they might all, kind of fuse together. Time will tell. It's definitely a pilot program. And then your second question, ours is through the Board of Governors, I guess, at CSU actually. So they had given, I think, upwards of $9 million or something at a certain point for student success initiatives. And there have been a lot of offshoots of that money and where it has gone. Actually, what it was run as last year was an institutional work study pilot. And so they essentially paid on-campus employers to create meaningful student employment around work study positions. And it was successful. They had over 150 students or 150 new positions created as part of it, but they had a really hard time managing it and identifying the correct students they were trying to target. And so ours is a little bit more niche in that way. That we know the groups that we're trying to target, and that's part of our application process, and our team has a little bit more bandwidth than the initial group that was running it. So that funding just got transferred from the group that was running the institutional work study pilot over to us. They essentially asked us to come up with a new proposal for this year. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a couple questions too, because we're trying, me and Angie are actually partnering on ways to do something like this similarly, just with some of the positions in the athletic department, because they ran into some hurdles at our institution with getting the enough work study eligible students to
Yeah.
fill any sort of roles. But are the projects, what types of projects are the students doing is my first question. And then I have a second question after that one.
For our upcoming one, because we haven't
Yeah.
they haven't drafted them yet. That's the thing.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm like, how do we talk to our supervisors about
Gotcha.
drafting projects like this? The athlete internship program has been going for several years, and those are individual students in individual departments doing projects. And so like some of the stuff that I know has happened as a result of that is like we implemented a DEI and belonging module that we then had that student athlete intern build a like module guide for supervisors to follow.
Gotcha.
So I mean, it's everything from that to presenting at orientation to
Okay.
quite a few different things.
So it's a pretty broad variety regarding the
Yeah.
projects. And then so the second question, you might have already said this, but it's more of a clarifying question. So are the students that are going through that program and then hopefully this, forecasted project or internship thing you have going, are those students specifically work study eligible students, or is it a different population, or is it broader than that?
Yeah, they can be. Our goals of the program are first to second year retention, which I think will hit more on the student employment piece, most
For
likely.
sure.
And then to close opportunity gaps. So we're targeting racially minoritized, lower socioeconomic
Okay.
status, and
Okay.
first-gen students in that. And so we're working with our committee that is called Students Recommended for Support. And so we have like a list to pull from essentially of who we're targeting and
I see.
accepting broad applications. But we haven't started accepting the internship applications yet. Just the student employment ones have come through so far. But we are seeing way more interest from our upper class students than our first and second year. So we're like trying to work on our marketing orientation and stuff right now. So yeah.
Gotcha. So they could
think there'll
be,
yeah.
yeah, so they could be either, really.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
nice. Okay, that's all. That's the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay.
I had some questions. Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead, Cassie. I'll go next.
So how are students being selected for the projects? Are they like applying as a group to work on these things? Are they being selected individually to like be partnered in a project?
Yeah, so I think the plan is, yes, apply individually, and then we will create multidisciplinary teams. I didn't share as much about the student experience. I shared that we're going to have kind of a cohort of employers that will go through the project building process. But then our plan is after graduation to keep the selected students on for 2 weeks, and we'll pay room and board for them to stay, because I know, summertime is quite the transition for when they get to move into apartments and things like that. But during those 2 weeks, they'll get to visit sites and also create a preference. So they wouldn't automatically, like upon application, be put into teams. They'll have some say in the process, but we're hoping to create multidisciplinary teams that would address a project, that would span a department.
All right, because that was my other question is like, are these projects like, if a specific department proposes a project, do they want their students to be the group
Right.
that works towards it? Because we had kind of an accidental a project that was working similarly to that. Our biology department came up with a marketing project, and they ended up pairing their students with the marketing students. So that
Okay.
ended up like they had these transferable skills between like students teaching them something in this totally different field and vice versa.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. So I like that you're all doing it multidisciplinary.
Oh, that's helpful, because again, it is a pilot. So we're like, we think this will work, and it's just going to see, we're going to see how it shakes out as part of that. I think so. We're really open with the student employment piece of like the breadth of experience that our campus employers have. For the internship ones, we're going to try and be a little bit more selective of like who can create those projects, and it'll be a little bit more shoulder tapping of the people. Anyone could apply for it, I guess, for our campus employers, but we're going to be pretty specific of like, these are areas that we know students would have translatable skills in, and they'll have to do kind of a brief outline of what they think the project will be as part of that.
So is it for the employer piece? Did you work with student employment first to get employers buy-in, or do you have an application and that went out to the employers on the campus? Or how are you determining which employers get what groups of students? Is it the application process? And just kind of how did that beginning start there? Because that's really interesting because we have a very large student employment population
Mhm.
at our university. That's how we run. I mean, it's 3 times the amount of staff. We have 3 times the amount of student employees as staff. So this is yet another thing that I think that I could partner with student employment to kind of get going, because I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. CSU is weird about how they manage student employment. So it lives in 3 places on our campus, which is kind of inconvenient. But at the same time, I think nice that we all have our little domains. So my office in particular does student employee development. So we do everything like coaching wise for our supervisors to better understand like how to be an effective supervisor essentially. And our hope is to expand that into the student employee development realm, like, and actually do sessions and workshops for students. Because right now what we have is a train the trainer program for supervisors to come. It's called Elevate. And the supervisors get trained on everything from onboarding to effective performance feedback and evaluations. And we're hoping to like kind of bridge into content for actual student employees as part of that too. And then student employment also lives in financial aid, as you can imagine, with work study pieces, and HR also handles the entity. So we like to think of ourselves as talent development equivalent of like building up the pipeline. So we didn't necessarily have to work with our financial aid or HR entities because we have so many relationships with existing on-campus employers essentially. And then, sorry, I'm trying to remember the second part of your question. Oh, the application component. So no, I think again, similar to the grouping of students, the faculty and staff will have a chance to interact during those site visits during that 2-week residential period at the start of the summer to like kind of pitch their project and then talk to students about who's interested, get a sense of what they're like, what elements they're looking for as part of that project. And again, it's one of those things you're like, it's so far away, but I'm just hoping it magically will come together, And Marie does have some insight, having done the student athlete internship program for so many years, just of like how those preferences can kind of line up and eventually work themselves out. But that is one of my concerns too, is like getting a group of folks that it's not ideal of how they manage them. So yeah.
So basically the employers are the supervisors.
Yeah.
You're identifying, do you want to be a supervisor? If you're an employer and needs student help, come here and you'll be a supervisor for this intern group.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And we'll have worked with them through the kind of cohort process to build out their project. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So is this kind of an attempt at almost a co-op, or is this going to build into more of like a co-op type of format?
Potentially.
We can dream big, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, potentially. And I mean, one of the hopes is specifically with the internship portion is that the students will eventually like present or turn back around their work for some kind of existing thing. Like we have murals, which is our multicultural undergraduate research. Now I'm not going to remember all the words. Something symposium is at the end where they just showcase like work that they've done either at a site or an internship site. As part of that, we have CIRC, so the all undergraduate research conference. And so I think like the hope is that we're building in enough steps where after their internship experience, they can kind of present the progress that they have made. I don't know fully about the co-op component. We're really just trying to get through the first year and prove that there's a need for them to fund us again, because the funds actually do expire 2024 or not 2024, July 1, 2024. We can hold on to what we have, but there's no guarantee of renewal. So we're just trying to show proof of impact on both student employment and the internship realm.
I would love to respond to your question at the beginning, but
Yeah.
we've been asking you a ton of questions, but some of the conversations we've had around sourcing some of these opportunities in our mind, we're kind of calling it a pipeline, right? So
Okay.
for those students who just need some initial experience outside of like their summer jobs, where are there existing areas on campus that we can, work with our partners, sort of funnel students in some of these directions? So athletics, obviously, as just as mentioned, is one of them. a marketing student being able to go work with the marketing team at athletics, for example.
Mhm.
We also have a few things, which I'm sure each of your campuses have something similar. We have one that's like Civic, the Consumer Insights and Business Innovation Center, where they do a lot of market research projects, and just students can go out on their own to contact Civic and see if they can get on a project, but how can we facilitate that for them? So they're not having to really do all that work on their own. And then, just those career champion faculty that really, are wanting to be engaged this way authentically on their own. We have several faculty that just maintain projects, lists of projects, things that they're doing, and how can we just better coordinate with them to facilitate something. I love this idea of an application that you have going. I love the idea of sort of the two-tiered onboarding orientation piece, I think, as well as Paul kind of mentioned earlier around equity. That's a big thing that we're talking about on a regular basis in terms of our career services team being very robust and very heavily involved, and not every college on campus necessarily has that. And so how can we, create some efficient pipelines that students can get engaged and involved in. So those are a few things that we're looking at, just not necessarily reinventing the wheel or trying to manage a ton of new employers per se, but what do we already have that is existing that we can do a better job of coordinating and facilitating that
that's
connection.
helpful. Well, yeah, and thinking about, just students don't always understand the access component to that. And so I think it's awesome that you're helping them make those connections. This is
they don't know where to look.
Yeah, exactly. That we have very little information. We have a lot built out internally for the internship portion of this, but our current website, we're calling the initiative Spark, which does not stand for anything. So I'll put the website in here, but it won't have much of the internship information externally facing yet, because like I said, we're in the student employment phase right now and trying to get that first group through the process. So more to come on future material related to how we end up running the internship. We have things built out, but just not online yet. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, other folks of how they talk to on-campus supervisors about, you've got a good student employment experience here, let's transition it into an internship, or is that onus kind of on the student?
One thing that we found with the fellowship thing was to encourage faculty that are already doing stuff like research projects, things like that, to just think about it in a different lens and submit it as a fellowship instead. So there are most likely already things happening across campus that people can just tweak a few different things, make it an internship that a project group can work on. That might be less work on behalf of like the faculty or the departments, and then develops from scratch a project.
We have a faculty fellows program that we're developing right now to have them basically mentor. It's not really internship related, but mentor students in careers. So we have some buy-in from one of the deans in LAS. Well, the dean in LAS, they're really excited about this. And so we're building that out and asking. What happened was we thought we would ask the faculty, and the deans came in and said, no, we're going to assign the faculty that does above and beyond, because they're already doing it. And so it's a work in progress. And this is not on the scale what you're doing, but it's exciting to see. But it was more, once the dean got in there, they were kind of straightening it out a little bit to have the faculty have the buy-in. We're excited about this. I think they're going to make a huge change in careers there, because we have to, with a small department, we have to use the other staff to help.
For sure. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And there is a mentorship piece built in pretty easily to the student employment arm. We haven't, aside from just the general supervision, we haven't found that to be as easy in the internship space quite yet. So that's interesting to hear. Well, thanks for folks' thoughts. And if you have more, or I'm sure we'll meet again before we start opening some of the internship stuff, but I'll give an update next time, or Marie will, about how that second phase is going too.
Just had a
So,
question as far as like, we're trying to do a little bit more, not with internships, but we're kind of taking ownership. Our office is taking ownership more of the work study because it's here, it's there, it's posted, whatever. And so, right. So we're trying to both put it in Handshake,
mhm.
like all of those postings in Handshake, and then we're going to actually try to do an evaluative process where the students and the department are kind of, how did this work out? So we're just doing that a teeny little bit. And I was just wondering if there's any is anybody using a Handshake for any parts of that, or is that not, we haven't used that for an evaluative process, more just a job posting, but I know that that is a function.
I don't think we use it for an evaluative process either. So, but yeah, all of our positions are posted in Handshake, student employment or otherwise. So, yeah, that's just interesting. I didn't know that had that functionality, honestly.
One additional question. I mean, I know these students are being paid to participate in this program. Is there a credit element at all, or a sort of a, oh, what's the word, like a banner credential or anything kind of associated in addition?
Not at this time. If the student wanted to pursue that, that would be up to the academic department because we're so decentralized in how folks interpret internships. I also wonder, like, because of the particular hour component, if students would be able to match it with what they're doing. But we felt like that was most feasible for what we would have a department create project wise. So nothing official this time. I think we would love to get to that point. Honestly, one of the things Marie was hired to do was to come up with a summer internship class that would be for credit, that would help some of our majors that either don't have a program or are multidisciplinary or whatever the case might be. And so this is a little bit of a branch in that, but not fully. So no, not at this time.
Sam, I look forward to your updates. We'd like to, head in that direction at CU Denver, just thinking about, actually, our undergraduate research program has found a way to work with financial aid and work study funds for students doing research with faculty either on the downtown campus or out at Anschutz. So I want to learn more about how they do that. They may open some doors and create some opportunities on campus. Because just like Jenny, you were saying down at UCCS, you've got so many student employees, and I just got to think on our campus with all the staff shortages, we can find a way to help those departments fund some student workers that they wouldn't be very interested in that. So that's something we'll be trying to figure out on our side going forward as well.
Yeah, I think that's totally something to start to pursue. That was actually one of the suggestions they had made after they shut down the institutional work study pilot, because that was one of the great successes is the students were exposed to research they weren't before. And so we're really trying to broaden. We live in the Division of Student Affairs, and so we have a lot of good contacts there, but how do we market this opportunity for faculty specifically who could offer some research opportunities for our students? So I fully agree that that's an avenue we want to travel down and be intentional with.
Awesome. Well, should we take a little break? Take a little 5-minute break. We'll see everyone back here at about 10:06. Welcome back, everybody. We're just returning from a break. Stacy, so your timing is right. Right. Hi, Eileen. How's it going? We have Eileen and Stacy just joining us, and Tawana, am I killing your name? Joined us right before we went on break. So what we done, we just kind of done updates, introduced ourselves, told folks what was going on. And we had just wrapped up talking about Sam's question about on-campus internships and the cool stuff they're doing up at CSU. So that's where we are in terms of the agenda. Stacy, you want to take a minute and just say hey and give us some updates on what's going on in your world, and then we'll go to Eileen and then Tawana.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for letting me join late. So sorry. I get pulled into another meeting this morning. So I'm the career development advisor for the Graduate School of Social Work at the University of Denver. And so work with our graduate students in that program. As far as updates, I just feel like we just finished commencement and we're just finally into the summer. So we're kind of in that mix. And so there's just a lot of transitions on our campus in regards to some of the dean and associate deans. And so I think it's the summer of transition and figuring out where all of the the priorities lie after the various deans and associate deans get placed. So that's where we're at. Hello, everyone.
Glad you could join us. Eileen, how are you doing? What's going on with Front Range?
I am excellent, thank you. I'm sorry for joining late. I had a meeting that I could not postpone this morning. So Front Range Community College is it also in a time of transition. We had been basically operating as 3 separate campuses, and we are now working on a transition for the departments to gel across the campuses. So that's a lot of change. We are going from the Career Success Center to Career and Transfer Success, and we're still feeling our way through that also. I've been here since December and I've enjoyed my time here.
Wow, lots of change. That's a big change. Nice. Well, thanks for that update. Tawana. Hello, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me now? I'm just.
I can. Did I destroy your name? I'm really good
Oh
at
no,
Googling.
yeah, it's correct. It's Tawana. And I am from CCA. Actually, we're going through some transitioning too. Now, there's not going to be a career service department. And so I'm not really sure exactly what's going to happen instead. But my last role as a career advisor, my last day as a career advisor would be next Friday. And so I don't know. I think there's going to be some announcements that'll be happening in July as to what the new structure might look like. And so folks are just waiting to hear what that might be.
Wow. So do you have a job at this point, or have they let you go?
No,
Or
not at this point. I've applied for a position internally,
okay.
but nothing yet. So we'll see. Yeah. And I've been at CCA since, well, this will be my 4th year. And in this past year, a lot of, I was the only one left in the department anyway. I mean, there are people we went from 5 to then about 3, then to 2, then to 1. And so no one was ever replaced. So that kind of gave you a hint that they might be doing something different. And so they just, let us know that they're moving toward another, I guess, structure of how they're going to do career advising. Again, I'm not sure yet what that's going to look like.
Wow. That would make me really uncomfortable. I'm so sorry you're going through that they're not more transparent or something. They have to offer some sort of career services, I would think.
I think they are. They just haven't made an announcement yet. Maybe, folks probably know. We just don't, as a whole don't know yet.
Well, why would you need to know that? My goodness.
Please keep an eye on ACC's website as well. We would love to have you. If you see anything at all, please reach out to us. Yeah. Hopefully, again, it works out just fine in your transition, but ACC would love to have you.
I was just going to say I worked with Tawana for a few of those years, and anybody would be lucky to have her on the team. So, yeah, do reach out.
Thank you all for your support. But yeah, that's what's happening in my world. So,
Wow. Well, hang in there. Yeah, keep an eye on the CU Denver website on all of them. It's been a year of a lot of shuffling and changing and people leaving and people coming, and I think across the board. Sarah, welcome. Glad you're here. Tell us what's going on over on the other side of the state.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Well, let's see what's going on in Gunnison. This is my first semester in Western Colorado. So just finished up my first semester. I'm actually in Wisconsin, which is where I came to Western from. So I'm spending some time back here. So if you see a cat in the background, that's my assistant. Taking the call with all of us here. But yeah, things are there. It's very interesting. Gunnison's a great area. I have a son who lives in the Front Range, which is how I ended up going from Wisconsin over to Western. Was in higher ed career services at a private college in Wisconsin for a long time. So not new to career services, just new to a state university versus a private school, which is a very different universe. But happy to be here. I too was stuck in a meeting for an hour, couldn't hop on the call right away. So thank you for recording it so I can catch up on some of the discussion that happened earlier.
Absolutely. I even remember to click the record button. So yay. No, I'm glad you can join us. This is, kind of informal. We have a kind of a loosely structured agenda. I just threw some notes down there to as talking points, but we're not limited to that. If other topics come up or other questions come up, we can certainly dive into those. Stacy, we skipped over your AI question until you got here. So why don't you kind of share with the group what your thoughts are around that or the questions you have for the group, because that's a really interesting emerging topic, I think.
So I don't have a defined question, Paul, so sorry about that. But it is just obviously an area that is growing and has been in the media so much. And I know that it is an area that I'm just going to be looking at for my own professional development this summer, but wondered if there are specific ways that maybe your campus is already using ChatGPT or any kind of AI in regards to job readiness materials or interviewing or anything like that that just I thought might be helpful for this discussion. So DU that I know of isn't using that in any formal way. I know in speaking with students, they've definitely been playing with things a little bit. So we've started to talk about what our recommendations might be if they're using some of those tools to make sure that they're not, putting themselves in any, not plagiarism really, but in a place where their materials aren't going to be seen as genuine, but would open it up for any thoughts or discussion from any of you.
So I know our colleague over in our career services department, Jess, who's not on this call, she's been doing a lot of work to do exactly what you just said regarding educating students on, AI, how to use it effectively in, the workplace, but also effectively in the job search process, because students are finding out and discovering that they can write their resume using it, they can write cover letters using it. And so Jess has been doing a lot of work to try to implement that in our Daniels Professional Development Program, which is the class. It's a 0 credit course for those who don't know about it, that is essentially part of the business core at Daniels. And so that's a lot of what we've been doing around that, because it's very relevant, popular. It's almost like an eye roll now of like, oh, ChatGPT is around and it's coming to steal our jobs. But I think that one thing we've been encouraging students with is when they first start the course, we tell them that a lot of the jobs that they'll do when they graduate after, they're all freshmen, won't even exist right now, but they might exist in 5-6 years. And so that's been some of the encouragement to counter the fear. But then, like you said, trying to educate them on, all right, these are tools. They're not going to take your job, but they're tools to kind of help you get started and enter into the career process a little bit more effectively. And so we're trying to spin it in a positive way for a lot of the students in our Daniels professional development program. So those are just some thoughts that we've been working on with that.
I would say that we're like, I'm gonna purposely, I've started to develop a workshop for that. I don't have my teeth in it right yet. And I'm really using, I think one of my best resources is Marie Zimenoff, is just on top of, for those of you who know her, I just follow her LinkedIn and kind of pay attention to what she's talking about. But I would say that I know that a lot of people are using it for resume writing. In particular within computer sciences, they'll say, literally, I had somebody, and I have to learn how to do this myself, so I'm in the process of learning this, say, write better resume bullets. So, in some ways, like some of that's going on already. And if it is using, for example, some ONET information, which it is, for source data for resume bullets going forward, I'm kind of doing that with students anyway, taking bits and pieces. So it's like, I want to find an area that is not how to use it to kind of better or identify where areas could be targeted so that they're more in alignment, because some of the resumes that I see right now have nothing to do with an area going forward. So if they're using it anyway, and it's kind of, how do you write this so that it's more targeted, to use it as a tool to demonstrate how to write things well, or what are some keywords to incorporate? So I want to show kind of how to use it maybe responsibly, or like, what are the top active verbs, or what are the top, or in the search. Like, one of the things that I've found is students who don't necessarily know the titles for a particular industry. So really using it as a job search tool. What are the top industries in this? What are the top titles within, having it do like an amazing search? Because I know some of this in my head and I can point to like 12 different places, but I think when I talk to students about it, I refer to it kind of as like a calculator. It's like, yeah, sometimes you still have to do the math and sometimes you can't bring that into your, your test, but it is a tool to be used if we figure out how to use it correctly. And that seems less scary to them. Yeah, like, is it going to come and get my job? No, you still have to do the math in your algebra class. Sometimes you can use a calculator and sometimes you can't. So that seems to make it a lot less scary to them.
I saw an example of how to use it as a tool the other day that I really liked. It was asking ChatGPT to come up with unexpected questions that an employer might ask you on an interview, specific to an industry. That way they have like the lingo to go back and like refer to and like build off of. And I think, yeah, that tool piece, I definitely think demystifies it a little bit.
We are forming a committee to like more in-depth examine in our office. It's called like the Trends and Innovation Committee or something like that, but it's meant to start looking at like how students are using ChatGPT and how we could potentially harness that energy as opposed to trying to combat it. I can say from my professional lens, and talking with on-campus supervisors, I've heard everyone using it from like writing their baseline evaluations to writing letters of recommendation. I used it the other day for learning outcomes, and that was like super, it was strange, but also like very fulfilling. And we obviously like edited them accordingly, but it was a good base point to start when we were like, I don't know, what are we hoping people get out of this sort of thing? So our office is definitely playing around with it, and supervisors on our campus. The evaluation one makes me feel like some kind of way about it, but letters of rec, people have really leaned into on our campus using ChatGPT, of saying like, highlight these 3 qualities for the student, and it's for this kind of job sort of thing. So it's been interesting to see it utilized.
Yeah, something similar. I used it to help with my annotated bibliographies in my master's program. Which wasn't part of an assignment or anything. It was an exercise that they wanted us to go through. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So the time savings, I think it is actually a tool that really does actually save us some time, which is helpful. And I'm sorry to join this discussion late. I don't know if this has been mentioned, but I did want to share one experience I had with a student regarding a tool like ChatGPT. He's a neurodiverse student who really struggles with getting started with projects and formulating outlines and things like that. And so for him, it's been a really empowering tool to be able to utilize in that regard. Like, at least help me get started, because then once sort of the outline is there, then the student can just fly in terms of incorporating the knowledge that he's gained in his class. And so I thought it was really interesting perspective for students who just sometimes have a really hard time getting started or getting that sort of dopamine push to dive into things that may not be exactly how they want to spend their time, but are really important and they want to do well, and not taking hours and hours and hours to get there. So just something to share.
I think that's a really great point, Angie. I've used it for some students that are neurodivergent as well. And it really does kind of help them focus a little more. I've also used it as a way to, especially cover letters. That's such a hard one for a student, that formal letter writing is such a, not something we do very often. But I encourage students to use it for that, so they can see an example of the layout of a formal letter, even though I give them samples and they can find examples that I have in resource material. This is where they're at. So they really do find some help in seeing the layout of a formal letter. Like, oh, I have to use a different tone when I write a cover letter, and it has to be formal, and it can't be short and abbreviated like I normally write everything, and it's not bullet pointed like a resume. So in that regard, it gives them something right there to see about the whole different tone that a cover letter has to take.
Yeah, and kind of going along with, I can't remember if it was Cassie that mentioned this, or but just teaching them how to correctly create a prompt. I've done that with students in one-on-one advising, like, okay, you want to use this to help your resume. How would you draft the prompt, and have them do it, and then have them talk about how to be more specific or more targeted in the language they're using in the tool to really maximize it.
I haven't worked with students a whole lot that have been using it that I can tell, but I did have one faculty sponsor do an evaluation, right, of a student's report, and they put in the response, they said this is the response from ChatGPT, and I agree with it. Or he had a few other minor modifications, but he was transparent in where that came from. I thought that was really interesting as a way to potentially save time. I think the only other time I played with it, I put in what are the top 10 keywords for, I forget what the position was, right? Financial analyst or whatever. Bam. I wonder, so where did it pull that from? You know, that's ultimately what I'd love to know is, what are the data sources, if you will, for those responses? Yeah, my oldest daughter texted me not too long ago, AI is writing resumes. I'm like, yep. My question is, how good are they? How well is it writing them? I think that will be the, Nina, as you said, the kind of the art going forward is, how do we use it as a tool, as a calculator, maybe to get a first draft, and then
Right,
help
because
folks
Marie
refine
would
it.
say, Marie Zimenoff would say it's writing it, but it's not customizing it.
Right. Yep, and that's the trick. And I read an article recently that kind of indicated some employers, if they catch somebody submitting an AI resume, that counts against them, which I think is really interesting.
A
Two things
question.
on, oh, go ahead.
Oh, just how would they know? How does someone check
I
to
don't know.
find
That's
out
a
if
really
it's
good question. I was like, how do they know that, the Chat
They
GPT?
have, yep, they put in the job description and have them write a resume. And then, is it the same thing? I have to say, every time I've asked AI to do something, it's a little bit different in Bing, but every time I've asked AI to do something, I can't do it. I don't have access to that. And then when it does answer something, it's like, well, okay, Paul, it's the same question. Where did you get the answer to this? And how good is this answer? When we've done a little bit of experimentation with both cover letters and writing resumes, and I echo everybody else's sentiments. It might be good to spur some action, but action has to be taken after that, because they're too formulaic and they're not always on target, man. So what makes you wonder where they're getting the info from.
Mm.
Well, and Twana, your question was also, how do they know? I don't know, but I know a couple of our professors know. So
You
I
know,
should
and
really
they-
get in touch because some of them already are on it. Like, how do you check? And I honestly don't know, but I know that there's some resources at ACC who I need to ask. So does anybody else know here how they know if it's written by AI?
I
Yeah.
saw an email recently, Nana, with regard to professors. How do they determine if papers are done with what is it, GPT, what is it, whatever it is, chat? And so I guess there's been some training somewhere with regard to papers, and then maybe they use that same, but these are professors. So employers might be going through the same type of training with regard to the resumes. But
Yeah,
then,
programs like Turnitin, we use Turnitin for student assignments in Canvas. They have an AI checker. I posted one in the chat that you can take a look at. I use sometimes to check a student submission. You can use the free version for up to 1,500 words. And they, because of the way that the AI responses are generated, the AI checkers can see if it was human created or AI created. One thing I learned kind of early on that I didn't realize, I assumed that like ChatGPT was like searching the entire internet for things, and it's not. It's a database, right? So it's pulling information from this massive database. So if you think that you're putting a prompt in there and it's sort of simplifying your Google search for you, that's an incorrect way to look at it. Which is why I put in the comment that someone had made to me one time that it's really good with language and words and writing and putting things together. And you know, one of our colleagues used it to plan a trip, like help me plan a 5-day trip to Turkey or whatever it was. So it's really good for things like that, but it's not necessarily pulling from internet resources for you. So if a student's using it to create like a bibliography or a list of sources for a paper, and they go to check those, a faculty member would go to check any of those, they would not be real sources. Yeah, so something to be aware of.
I tried to use it to see which universities in Colorado were offering specific programs, and half of what it came back with, I lied. Probably about 40% of what it came back with was not factual. So it's definitely got its problems. Bing, on the other hand, will search the web, and it will give you the Bing AI will give you where it got some of its material. I don't believe it gives you all of it, but I'm just starting on down these two roads too. Has anybody found something that will do citations? So I have a citation generator, but I don't know whether AI will do it.
Definitely an interesting topic and something I think we'll just continue to work on and learn as we go. But yeah, things are changing. Well, thanks for the question, Stacy. That's a really good question. What else is on our list? Unpaid internships kind of ties in a little bit with kind of Sam's prompt in terms of just creating more internship opportunities on campus. But what's your approach to unpaid internships? Are you finding funding sources? How are you approaching that? NACE has released a position statement in May. sounds like they're going to move forward to try to get some federal legislation kind of mandating that internships be paid, and putting that back on employers. So I don't know, where's everybody at on that? What are your thoughts?
Thoughts in terms of whether or not internship should be paid, or
No, just in terms of for unpaid internships, are you trying to find funding sources, or are you, do
oh,
you have, what sorts of, where are you finding it? How are you addressing that? I mean, we have a small scholarship for students with unpaid internships, but it's very small. We take our portion of the revenue from our internship and job fairs for our office, and that's what we funded with, but it's pretty small, and it's a challenge I'm going to kind of pose to our leadership, because there's a big push on our campus. We want to be an equity serving institution and do all these wonderful things, which is great, but we still have a lot of students with unpaid internships, and that has really negative impacts, as NACE's research kind of shows. So I was just curious if anybody has ideas for me on kind of funding sources or how you're approaching your institutions to get some money. Sounds like, Sam, you were fortunate. You've got a group there with some money that they're putting out to try to address kind of these inequities. So that's awesome.
Yeah, our unpaid internship program got shut down though, which I think Marie reported on last time. So yeah, this is a new effort. Our business and financial services have issue with where the tax distribution lies for the way we were running that program previously. And so we're still looking for, I wrote down, Cassie, your information just so Marie can reach out about the Dreamers and Parker Dewey, or Dream USA and Parker Dewey, because I know that's an avenue we're looking to explore more too in that space. And yeah, we just don't know what, there's no moving our board or our business and financial services regarding our unpaid internship program. And we've kind of stopped asking questions because last time we did, we almost got CUs shut down. So
I came in late for the first half, but I heard someone say something about work study could possibly serve as an opportunity for internship. So I'm just wondering about, can that funding be switched to the category of an internship for students who are using financial aid?
That's a great question. That's an avenue I want to pursue, but go ahead, Cassie.
We have two different programs. One is our Earn and Learn program. We were awarded a $900,000 grant around experiential learning. So I know a lot of the funding went to supporting that program, which does provide pay for unpaid internships. The stipulation is like the student has to be taking it for academic credit. And they can't be receiving any other type of stipend. So there are some like parameters set in place for it. The other, with the work study piece, we had been running a program. I don't know where it is currently, because we've redone our work study program. And if anyone wants to get in contact with some members on that team, I'm happy to connect you, because they're all fairly new to our office. But in which work study would cover, I believe it was 60% of the students funding, and then the additional 40% came from the employer. So if an internship program wasn't able to fully support a student financially, they had an opportunity to split or contribute to their work study funds as a student employee. Again, I don't know exactly how the ins and outs of that work, but I'm happy to connect you with folks that were interested. The other piece was that Parker Dewey piece. Do other folks work with Parker Dewey right now? Okay, so then I won't get into like the nitty gritty of that unless anyone wants me to. But it's great for short-term learning opportunities with funding available for students.
No, I'm sorry because I came in late also, but can you, Cassie, I'm going to try to get in touch with you and just ask about how you're using it for Dreamers and international students. Okay, I'll email on the side. But we haven't found, so FRCC just started working with them, and I have just started working with them. So I'm not real familiar with it, but there doesn't look to be a lot of opportunities at this point for students. And they're all remote. So I really haven't found it. First of all, I haven't found them to be internships. They're actually short-term jobs. And B, I haven't found a lot of opportunities for students. Have you had differing?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the specific partnership that we have with Dream US. So our Immigrant Services Office really started our partnership with Parker Dewey. And they have a longstanding relationship with Dream US for providing funding for undocumented students that are Dreamer Scholars. It is short-term projects. So these are not semester-long, year-long internship programs. They are short-term skill building projects, and they call them micro internships, but even they don't like that term. So they're looking for other terminology for it. Essentially, they're gigs. So like what you would find on Fiverr or GitHub, something like that. But employers use Parker Dewey. They pay for the student project. Parker Dewey reviews all of those projects to make sure that pay is equitable for the work that's being asked of the student. And so what we've found, at least for it, is two different things. One, short-term projects that departments are working with the employer. So we're sending employers to Parker Dewey to post the position as a way to kind of bypass the needing to find an internal way of doing work study. They are good for that kind of workaround process. So we've had like a working relationship with Dream US Scholars in that way. And then this fellowship is kind of the part 2 of this program. That is internal based projects that we're going to post from, because we have the funding from this stipend, this Dream US stipend. And we're using Parker Dewey as the catalyst to help pay the students, because they're paid on a consultant charge versus like having to do it through work study, which would intercept or limit them because of their status.
Do students have to have a social security number?
No, they have to have what is it, I-10?
I-10.
Yeah. And that's all they need to have to get the consulting pay for it, which is why that Parker Dewey partnership is kind of key in that piece. And I can connect you more with our Immigrant Services Office too, who've set up that partnership. We're kind of handling the faculty engagement and collecting the fellowship opportunities piece. He's really worked on like setting up what that partnership looks like with Dream US and Parker Dewey.
Thank you, Cassie. I think that Andrea from my office is working with him already.
Oh, okay, perfect. Nice.
And if not, I'll be in touch with you. So thank you for all that info.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to have to read up on Parker Dewey. I don't know that much about. These are new for me, Parker Dewey.
Yeah, they are not really internships or micro internships in any way, because they are not mentored. They are not mentored or have learning outcomes, but they are professional projects, project-based.
We took a look at them for a little bit when we were trying to find some other opportunities that really were internships or truly micro internships. And it was just not something that we chose to pursue at the time because we had other initiatives that we're working on. It really is gig, really is economy stuff. And for some students that can be beneficial. It just wasn't a match for us and what we were trying to do. But I think it can be very useful if if you have the right population.
Okay. So for Dream US, that's scholars, that's stipends that are provided to colleges?
Yeah, so that is Dream US, I believe they're working with about 30 universities at this point. But what they do is they provide through the partnership funding for different opportunities for Dream US scholars. But their initiative, their goal is like supporting in this financial way with the objective that your university finds funding in the long run. And so knowing that it is a short-term funding and that their goal is to like get your university to invest in these programs longer term, but a starting point to show, you know, get you some ability to like collect data around engagement and kind of launching programs that support Dream US scholars.
Yeah, I think that's why we primarily didn't do it, because we just don't have the capacity to take on the funding once they were because it's clearly set to transition. So we just didn't have.
We use Parker Dewey at Western. Did not use it at my previous college, but it was fairly new at that point, and we were doing kind of our own version of it independently. As far as unpaid internships, it was pretty common among most of the career services folks within Wisconsin that none of us were going out of our way to promote an unpaid internship. And that's the philosophy I had when I came to Western. And I didn't really get many requests in the past for unpaid internships. There was maybe 2 programs that were notoriously unpaid, but the students got a lot of real life experience. And so we were okay with that. But I am getting a lot more requests now that I'm in Gunnison than I did back in the college I was at in Wisconsin. I don't know if that's just the history of the way it was done in the past. But I will say for Parker Dewey, I think it's an interesting concept. It is truly a project by project. It's not micro internship, but for students in the Gunnison area who were in a small rural area and we don't have a ton of employers and traditional internship opportunities, especially during the school year, it's a good way for beefing up a resume with a relevant professional project in a short term that might elevate their resume a little bit more had they not done something like that. But as far as unpaid internships, not a fan, quite honestly, and haven't been. And I'm actually working with some of the other parts of campus to iron out our credit internship for credit program, because right now there's about 4 different versions of it being talked about around campus, and also trying to figure out how do we capitalize on work study better than we have in the past. But that's my 2 cents on the unpaid versus paid. I'm always going to encourage a student to get paid, and if you can get paid and get credit, even better.
I know there are some institutions that limit posting of unpaid internships at their, like through Handshake or whatever their posting system is. Does anyone in our state do that? Okay.
We don't post, like, for if it's clearly a nonprofit or something, like they're even for some of those, we do not post unpaid. We just don't. Yeah, and when there is an unpaid, we look at it very specifically to see if it's for the Denver Homeless Coalition, or if it's the Botanic Art, but we scrutinize those pretty carefully, because I think especially for our student population, they can't afford to not to have an unpaid internship. So
is there an option then to put that under I don't know, someplace where there are volunteer opportunities? So if they wanted to have the experience, knowing that they're not going to get paid, they have the option to look at those opportunities.
If they're clearly nonprofits, we get a lot of requests through Handshake for things that, they're just like, this would be a good opportunity for your students to come do free work for me and my, little startup company. Like, they could do free design work. It would be a good experience. Let me work with we're like, no. So we have to go through quite a bit of that. We get a lot of requests for that almost all the time. We have work studies who, as students are looking at these through, would they want to be going through these? Is this a good opportunity for them? But we get like a fire hose worth of these sometimes, and people are just looking for free labor.
Yeah. And I don't put those on Handshake either, but I do set some of them aside for some students who say that they are willing to volunteer just to get the experience.
We
I
do
have those,
have a
I have
service.
those on occasion that will say, I just want the
Yeah.
experience because I've been applying to places and they're all wanting 1 or 2 to 3 years experience. I just want to put something on my resume. And so I keep a little, a little bit on the side just to say, okay, if that's what you want to do, here are some of these opportunities for you.
Some of those, I'll just have them go straight to the Colorado Nonprofit Association, or we do have a service learning component, and they do actual projects that are an established, like we do some things with Hudson Gardens, we do some things with some, so there are some of those opportunities, but it's an established sort of thing that we have, and it's not, we have a list of some places that have kind of been, these are okay. Yeah, so there, a list of those types of organizations does exist. But again, like if a student can get some experience at a non-for-profit and get paid for it at the same time. Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, we only post if they're well-known nonprofits also. Established nonprofits. And we don't get a lot. I'm really surprised at how few that we actually get that want something for nothing. I've been at other institutions where they came in, like, as you said, then as a fire hose. But at this point, I don't know whether it's because we've set the standard, or the standard was set here, but we also, with some government opportunities, will post too. But we always try to talk them into paying, no matter what.
And I appreciate everybody's input. I have to check with Joan and see what we're doing in terms of posting unpaid internships. I have a feeling we are, but I like the approach of being very selective about which opportunities are posted, because there's some folks, Nate, as you pointed out, just want some free labor and they're going to, well, it's great experience. Or we'll have students show up with an internship with a startup, right? Yeah, I'm going to build their website. Who's going to show you how to do that or work with you on that? Oh, no, I'm just going to do that. No, that's not an internship. That's free labor because they don't know how to do it or have the time to do it. Yeah.
One other element I just want to add to this has been a conversation we've had quite a bit lately, is just fraud. Some of our students are getting sort of swindled into opportunities, and, again, having them have some more skin in the game helps to prevent from those types of things from happening.
Well, we just had a student, talk about fraud, Angie. This is a graduate business student, an international student. So I wonder if they're being targeted. This was a paid internship opportunity. It was remote. The company was back in Cincinnati, but it's a legitimate company. But the student, and it was like, showed up right toward the deadline, and they said, the person we selected just backed out, but you were on our list, so here's this amazing pay, and everything looked too good to be true. And the student noticed that the recruiter's email address was just slightly different than the company email address. And they were going to, front some money to them, and then you're going to have them sound like buy some equipment or something, but they caught that. So there is fraud out there, and some of them are pretty sophisticated about it.
And I do feel international students are, maybe, I can't think of the word, unfairly targeted or more susceptible to some of those things. We've had a few just really weird things. Like, a student was on a 40-person Zoom interview and never even really had a chance to answer a question or contribute. Got a follow-up email like, "Oh, you're so amazing. We were so impressed by you." And she's like, "How could they be impressed by me? I didn't even do anything." And then, just never being able to get a response from them, but all these messages telling her to show up what day and time, and, just weirdness. And so I think it's part of this is just educating our students to be aware. I'm so glad that that student you were talking about noticed the
Mhm.
email address was off, or it just is like, is this normal? And helping them to understand, like, if this is happening, it's not normal. This is not how internships and jobs are secured. So we're working on incorporating some of that education into our planning for our DPDP programs moving forward.
Nice. Any other thoughts on unpaid internships before we move on? Well, I appreciate everybody's thoughts on that. Opportunity Now grants. Is anybody benefiting from those, getting some funding for programs through that source from the governor? We've done a lot of talking at our institution. I don't think we've secured anything yet.
We got a report from the Larimer County Workforce Development Center that they applied for several and got none. So during the first round, at least.
Wow.
And we had decided not to pursue them just because of the timing when we found out, but that wasn't a very optimistic response from them, at least.
Mhm. The only one I've heard of that got a grant, I was talking to Sadie over this last week. She came down from Colorado Mountain University up in Grand Junction. She came down to Denver for a career fair that they came down to last year. But I think they partner real closely with their local workforce center. And they got some, I forget the nature of the grant, but they got some sort of funding through that partnership. And that's the sense I get from the little bit I've been exposed to the Opportunity Now grants, is they're really pushing for kind of collaborative proposals, right? If CU Denver alone just writes a proposal and says, here, give us some money to fund unpaid internships or whatever, probably not going to get it. You need to either be working with other institutions or employers, nonprofits, government, whatever, or workforce centers to come up with something that creates a clearer channel, I guess, or pipeline from college to career in some of those high demand areas. But I was just curious. I know it's a fair amount of money out there, but didn't know what anybody else's experience was around that. Because like I said, I was in a few meetings where a lot of talking was happening, but I don't think much came out of that. Sounds like similar experience for you all as well. That he's not even maybe pursuing those in some cases. Okay, that's good to know. That's interesting. With international students, let's move to CPT. Our office is heavily involved in the kind of helping students through the process to get CPT, and we work with our international student office around that. At our institution, academic credit is tied to CPT, so they have to get at least 1 credit hour by enrolling in an internship course for that. To what extent are you all involved in your internship programs, working with international students in the CPT process? What does that look like? Because ours is long and cumbersome, and that's something I want to work on in the coming years to try to streamline that, because it takes most students anywhere from, if they're lucky, 2 weeks to more likely 3 weeks from the time they get an offer and report their experience to get it through the approval process and for our international student office to produce an I-20 for them. So employers that show up and say, here's your offer on Thursday, we want you to start on Monday, it's not happening. That's not going to work. Is anybody else working with international students in that capacity, or no? Y'all lucked out and didn't have to do that? It's just us. I'm feeling extra lucky and special now. Okay. Well, be wary if your international student office approaches you about that. Feel free to reach out because it's a process we need to work on for sure.
What are the parts of the process, Paul, that seem to be so cumbersome?
A big challenge for us, and I think it's just creating awareness on the part of students, and it puts them in a tough spot. Right? I've had multiple students tell me that, so I tell them, this takes a little while, but for them to be upfront with an employer and say, if you want to hire me, great, but it's 3 weeks before I can start working. They're afraid they're going to lose an offer. Is what happens. They're afraid the employer's going to say, well, we can't wait that long for whatever reason. We're going to skip you and then make the offer to another student. I think that's part of it. And then
Don't they have to get a letter of sponsorship, and then that letter of sponsorship has to go in through, like, they have to get a letter of sponsorship or offer of employment, not
right,
a
they just need an
sponsorship.
offer letter.
An offer of employment from the
Mhm.
potential employer, and then that's
Right.
got to go in and be okayed because someone at an office somewhere, which is where, like, we fell out of it when I was at Johnson and Wales, that has to go in and be okayed, and that can take time.
Well,
Am I right, Paul?
well, it's a little different. It's got to be okayed, and when the international student office on our campus said academic credit has to be tied to it for curricular practical training, that's where we got pulled into it because they run through the internship program and they enroll in an internship course. So we're on the front end of vetting that because in order for students for an experience to qualify for academic credit, it's got to be related to their major or their minor, right? So we'll do kind of the initial vetting on that. And then they go through the normal internship reporting and approval process, which generally doesn't take too long. But then once it's approved, then it goes back to the international student office. I fill out an online form, then the student does, and then the international student office needs up to 10 working days to produce an I-20, and that's where it slows down. I don't know how to address that with them because they're working with not only international students, but international faculty. We've got the Anschutz Medical Campus, and we have a lot of scholars, I guess, that are, coming from other countries. So they have a lot of issues there to deal with, but it is kind of a multi-step process and students seem to get easily confused by it. So I was just curious what other experiences you all had, and it sounds like you've been fortunate to stay out of that. I mean, I love working with international students, to work with them through the process.
It's been a while since I did this, but when I used to work with the Art Institute before that closed, before I moved to DU, then we did have a similar form. We had a similar process, but as I recall, the student themselves had to take the form like to the Social Security office or something to get something signed, and it wasn't our international office. And so so I wonder if there's something that could be done where, I mean, it was more onus on the student, I suppose, but it was pretty quick for them to do that. Once they got that employment verification letter and we okayed it as something that was tied to their academics, they pretty much could go to the Social Security office and, they stood in line, but when their, time was, up, they could pretty quickly get it. So I wonder if there's something that maybe CU is doing to handhold them a little bit that maybe could be quicker, or
That's a
another
great
option
question.
to
Yeah,
make
I
it
don't know.
quicker.
I'll have
It's sort
to-
of foggy in my head though, because it was like 5 years ago that we
That's
did that.
okay.
So sorry, I'm not more helpful.
No, I appreciate that insight because I do know there is a process for students to get a Social Security number if they need it, and some employers require that. And I'll be meeting with our international student office folks here in the near future to work on kind of that process anyway, because they realize it's long and cumbersome as well. I was just curious if anybody had some experiences or ideas to share, but no, I appreciate you letting me bend your ear and cry in my soup a little bit. But well, it's 11:03. Should we take another quick 5-minute break and then come back and head toward the finish line? All right, awesome. See you back in 5. Thanks. Well, it looks like a few folks had hop off for other meetings. That's good to see everybody.
Yes, I missed the last group. I really enjoy this group. So I was glad to be able to. I have to jump off at like 10 of 12, but very happy to see everybody.
No, it's great to see everybody. You know, and if we don't go all the way till 12, that's fine too. You know, there's no hard requirement for that by any means. I think the last thing I had on the bullets was just seeing what everybody's experience was with some of the big four accounting firms. We're finding they're doing less and less and shortening their internship programs and refusing to sign any of our forms or fill out time logs or well, they haven't done evaluations for a while, but they won't even click an approve button in Handshake right now. They're providing students with a letter that they then have to send to us, basically saying it's like their offer letter. You now have an internship with PwC or KPMG. Those are the two we're running into. And what's kind of comical to me is with the back and forth, them telling us they refuse to do anything, and then getting clarification and back and forth. They could have just clicked the dang button and been done with it. Seems to me, I don't know. So I was just curious if you all had run into that yet with the big four.
I have not run into that, but I'm curious if that is anything related to after the in-person NACE. I wasn't at in-person NACE, but I had a whole bunch of colleagues in the Midwest that did go, and there was a big call amongst a bunch of us, and they were talking about the employer pushback on Handshake and how more and more employers are jumping off Handshake. And I'm curious if that has something to do with that. You know, if it's a Handshake issue. I haven't seen employers jumping off, but again, I've only had the one semester at Western. We saw Handshake usage explode at my previous college, but we also were part of the consortium that bought Handshake so that all the private colleges bought it at one time. And then that led the 2-year system to buy, and then the 4-year system stragglers to jump in. So Wisconsin was fully Handshake on all their campuses, private, public, and 2-year. But yeah, this was the discussion they had last week that I was privy to, that there's a lot of pushback by employers toward Handshake. I don't know why, but that was the discussion that career services people and employers were having kind of in the hallways and stuff at NACE. So curious if that might have something to do with it.
Interesting. I don't know. Well, this hasn't, I saw this starting to emerge with spring semester in terms of a couple of the firms shorten their internship program. So we have a 10-week requirement, and all of a sudden their internships were 9 weeks. Like, and we worked with them and they found a way to, well, we can find a way to extend it another week for this student. But both PwC and KPMG have sent us very lengthy emails telling us that it's now their policy that they will not sign any university documents, any documents from outside sources. They won't sign off on a time log. KPMG has refused to do our end of semester survey for years, so that's not new, but PwC is moving to that. So now it puts the onus on the student to produce those documents for their faculty because they're enrolled in a class, and evaluation is part of their grade and the time log is part of their grade. And so I just find it really interesting and annoying that they're trying to shift this. I mean, I get they don't want to, I guess if you have a national company, you're doing hundreds of internships, maybe thousands around the country, why they want to streamline the process, but to just kind of blatantly say, we're not going to sign anything.
So I'm chuckling a little bit because as we were talking, I was kind of Googling this to see what I could find. I haven't personally heard about it. What I've heard more is a couple of full-time students who had offers pushed way back. It wasn't with the big four per se, but like Accenture, for example. I had a student who was supposed to start right after graduation, and they pushed her all the way back until next April or May. So I have seen some of that, but kind of going with what Eileen was saying, the BARD, I have the BARD extension on my Chrome. And so I couldn't find really any articles, but BARD popped up and said, had some information on here. Large companies, not necessarily, again, the big four, but like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Amazon, citing a number of reasons, including concerns about handshakes, spam, and fraud, as well as the high costs, just their high costs. And so maybe that's part of it, is they're paying a lot for it and feeling like they're having to do a lot of the work themselves. Could be factoring into that a little bit. I don't know. I'm assuming there was a lawsuit involved somewhere that would encourage companies to all get on board with, nope, not doing that. We don't want to find ourselves in that situation. So I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
interesting. I'll definitely ask around.
You don't need to be part of Handshake to go through our process. They'll get a link, right? A Handshake link to click to review the experience a student reported, and then click the approve button, but they don't have to subscribe to Handshake in order to do that.
Right.
Means so. I don't know. Yeah, I'd be curious to know what's going on, but if there was a lawsuit in the early days when KPMG said, we're not going to do your evaluation, it was, he made up some story about legal telling them that there was some kind of legal blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, nobody else has an issue with this. Big companies, small companies, just you guys. And that makes me kind of wonder, well, if legal is running your firm and they're that paranoid about stuff, what are you doing that's making them that paranoid? I don't know. My brain heads off in weird directions, but I'm just curious if you all run into that with the county internships yet or not. So maybe they're just picking on us. I don't know. I doubt that, but okay. I'm just curious what others' experiences were with our friends in the big four. Other topics. That's everything I had on there. What else do y'all want to talk about? What other things are going on?
I have a question for the group, just because, as I said, new to Colorado Career Services. Are co-ops for students, you know, engineering, computer science, marketing, sometimes accounting, are they as popular in Colorado as they are in the Midwest? Because I'm telling you, every college in the Midwest, their students do co-ops if they're in computer science, any type of engineering, supply chain, things like that. So I'm wondering if that is as prevalent. I haven't heard this semester too many students approaching me that they've gotten the offer of a co-op. Just looking for a little insight.
At least at our school, it's not. We had a very limited co-op program when I first joined the university, 18 years ago, but it kind of went away. And some I'm interested in. It seems like there's real value in co-ops. So I don't know what all is involved in a co-op program, or how our office would be involved in that. Sarah, but I think it's a great question. I don't know if any of the others here, you all have co-op programs at your schools?
I also came from a Midwest institution that had a huge co-op following, and there is like very limited even at CSU. They did just hire someone, but it's co-ops and internships. And so it's going to be a lot of rebuilding. And I think it's only a 3/4 position. It's not even a full. And so I just don't think at CSU we're investing the time and energy into it. And what I'm running into in other industries, so engineering, I feel like it's always had some kind of, underfoot to it, but our computer science students and students outside of the engineering realm don't respond well to that language. And even some of the companies don't know how to market it as a co-op, even though that's what they're trying to sell. And so I'm having a hard time with external employers figuring out how to best present it to non-engineering majors, in my experience. So definitely not as popular at CSU, at least.
That's interesting. Well, go ahead, Eileen. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Sarah. Can I ask for a little clarification? Because I've had the term co-op mean 5 different things. So when you talk about, what are you talking about when you're talking about co-ops so that I can better respond?
Sure. So the way that they're typically structured around the Midwest is it's basically a formal internship program extended into a semester, if not a year. So students pause their education for a semester in order to either continue that internship experience with even more responsibility, more projects given to them, or they've done their summer internship and then they get offered a co-op, or sometimes they'll start a co-op in a semester and then they'll do a summer internship right after. But the big difference between like a formal internship and a co-op is they're pausing their education for a whole semester. I can tell you, my son's a college senior, and all of his fellow engineering student friends have all had to do them. So they're all 4.5 to 5 year graduates because of co-ops. My oldest son went to Mines, and I can tell you their previous director did not encourage them because it meant slowing down. You're pausing your education for an entire semester, which affects your retention rates. So, but in the Midwest, it's huge. Every major manufacturer, every major employer for supply chain, computer, engineering, marketing, some business disciplines, they all are co-op heavy. And students just know, oh, I have to do a co-op.
So Sarah, it's where they will spend a semester just working full-time, not taking classes, and then they go back semester of classes. So is it kind of a rotational thing like that, where it's like one semester?
They do, yeah, usually it's one co-op, one semester co-op.
Okay.
Maybe a year. I know when my son was at Mines, he said some of his friends that went to engineering schools elsewhere had to do a year and pause their schooling for an entire year. It's interesting because students, the feedback I've gotten in the past from students is it was like they know they have to do it, but they're not super excited about them. And the paperwork that they make them sign, because any project they work on, anything they ideate, anything that they come up with while they're working full time is not their property, is not their, it's the company's. So there's a lot of controversy. Our co-ops just getting some really inexpensive, innovative, young talent. And paying them a decent wage, but then they're putting them back into school and maybe not hiring them back. So I was just curious. I'm not hearing too many employers around here say, hey, you have students for a co-op. So I was thinking maybe it was more geographically popular.
Yeah, and one other thing I just wanted to add with co-ops, usually they're structured so that your financial aid doesn't kick into repayment, like you're able to get waivered, things like that, as long as it's been structured through your educational institution. So versus taking a year off to go work and come back. If I had my druthers and $1 billion, we'd have a co-op program through the University of Denver. It's just something we've talked about a lot because we do have that sort of group of employers that are just phenomenal, and to sort of be redoing all of these processes over and over again seems a little counterintuitive, but someday having some sort of dedicated time in their schedule. For us, a lot of it's our students, they go abroad, fall of junior year. That's sort of the time to go. So having sort of a time to do a co-op, I think would be really great. But I think you're probably right, Sarah, with what you were saying geographically, and certainly the industries that are in those areas and what they can facilitate for students. But we don't currently have an official co-op program.
What kind of infrastructure needs to be in place, Sarah, for a co-op program?
From the college perspective or from the employer perspective?
College.
That's probably a question for colleagues of mine at some of the schools here that in Wisconsin that have engineering programs. I came from a small liberal arts school. The only reason it's on my radar is I have a student at UW Platteville. And then I had one who was in engineering at another school that didn't promote them. And they're, the schools here in the Midwest that have those disciplines that I mentioned, usually the career services departments promote them pretty heavily. So yeah, I can't give you a whole lot of insight from the career services standpoint about infrastructure. But I can certainly ask some colleagues in Wisconsin and share that back with you.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know just what would be involved in doing that. I got an email yesterday from a recruiter asking if we had a co-op program, The recruiter was based out east, but they apparently had some sort of an opportunity in the Denver area for that. So well, we don't have a formal co-op program, but we do have an internship program. What are you trying to do? You know, no, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, it does tend to lean more towards those really more hands-on types of things versus, you know, the traditional internship, I think.
Well, I wonder, how is that significantly different than, say, an apprenticeship? All right, that's a big thing. Their governor is trying to get everybody to push on, and historically community colleges have had, I think, the vast majority of those programs, but there's a push in higher ed, at least in our institution, to find, are there some areas in was it data analysis or computer science or somewhere that where more apprenticeship programs could be kind of created. So, and those involve, right, a working component, related instruction component. So there's similar elements. I'm just wondering, I'd like to learn more about the co-op programs, because it sounds like they could be a really good experience for students. I can see where it extends their graduation a bit, but seems like it would almost enhance retention. I guess unless an employer said, hey, we want to keep you, quit school and come to work for us. But
And I do think that's one of the goals, not that they quit school, but that like you go and do this for a prolonged period of time, and there is a higher promise of a job after, at least at my previous institution, that was always like one of the driving things that they would sell students on, is like, you do a co-op and you figure out if you like that place or not, and then they'll likely give you a job if you do a good enough job.
How often did they offer a job on the spot and then the student didn't come back?
I don't know. I wasn't as involved in career services at my previous institution. I just ran the engineering building, or the engineering residence hall. So that's a lot of student narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I can see as if there is a shortage, if there's a labor shortage at that point, there's a lot of potential for non-complete.
So they'd work for a semester, Eileen, then go back to school and then not go back to the employer. Is that what you're thinking?
Vice versa, that they take their internship and then do the co-op and not go back to school.
Oh, gotcha.
The employer would offer a job and then not go back to school, because the employer knows them by that point. They have a ready-made person. Well, you could go back to school, or I could pay you X amount right now.
And that could be where the challenge was. Yeah. Interesting. Great question, Sarah. A whole lot of I don't know.
Well, that's good questions. I don't necessarily have great answers, unfortunately.
Other questions for the group? What are y'all doing that's going to be fun this summer? You taking some time?
I leave tomorrow to Canada for 2.5 weeks.
Nice. We're in Canada. That's awesome.
I'm from Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, okay.
So pre-COVID, I would always take my kids home in the summer for a few weeks. And so it's been a few years since we've been able to do it. But now that I have Justin on my team, and Jess, as was mentioned, we finally have a fully staffed undergrad career team.
Hey.
I've got some amazing folks that are holding down the fort for me to take a very much long needed vacation. So that's what I'm doing. And then coming back and working the rest of the summer. So.
Well, have a great time. That sounds amazing.
Thank you.
I'm just going to take a little time off next week. And then in August, we'll probably do a weekend somewhere in the mountains, maybe down near Salida. A whole family thing. So looking forward to doing that. A little break.
My big one was I did go to in-person NACE in Florida, and then my family joined me partway through, and we did Disney World for a couple days. So I don't know as much of a vacation. It was a lot of planning and a lot of walking, but we still had some fun at the pool and got to relax. So yeah.
All right. Well, this last year we did a meeting in the fall and one now in the summer. Does two seem like a good number per year? We used to do 3. We used to also sneak one in like in February, early March. This year I just didn't have time to plan it, but want to make sure that what we're doing is of value and of use to you all and everybody else. So any recommendations, ideas, thoughts, suggestions, I'm wide open to. The last meeting we did in was kind of late October. When in the fall is a good time for everybody?
Well, at DU, you know, we wrap up the week before Thanksgiving. Students leave and go home, and we get to sort of veg.
Yeah, you guys have a nice
for-
quarter system where you get, what is that, 6-week break or something between?
Yeah, sort of a J term in December-ish. Yeah, so yeah, for us, certainly after the end of the quarter would be ideal, but we're pretty flexible.
Well, I'm open to either, 2 or 3 times a year, but I feel like 2 times a year may suffice, especially if there are a number of people that go to some of the professional conferences. It's always great to hear feedback from what people are hearing on the street at those different events.
Thank you for that. All right, well, let's shoot for a fall one. If you have along the way ideas for either speakers or topics, please let me know. And if you run across information that you want to share with the group, job opportunities, whatever information you want me to disseminate to the group, please send it to me. I'm more than happy to put that in an email and get it out to everybody. That's quick and easy for me to do. Sam, thanks for sharing the link. Awesome.
And thank you, Paul, for coordinating all of this. I know it's kind of a lift, but we really, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for taking time to get together. It's always good to see everybody. Yeah, it was just crazy this spring, so I didn't have time to go chase down a speaker and that kind of thing. But hopefully the fall won't be quite as nuts. We've got a great new person coming on board, so I expect some of the burden will be off. And we all enjoy the rest of your summers. And you have a great trip. And if things come up, reach out and I'll get the recording link out to everybody as soon as I get that back from our tech person. But great to see y'all. Have a great rest of your day and a weekend. And
Nice to meet you all.
again in the fall.
Thank
Yeah.
you all.